Okay, I'm here with Sarah Herrera, and I am so excited to have a conversation with her because she is a money person. She can help people save money, she can help people keep mo more of their money. And I think as business owners, that's a hugely important conversation. So, Sarah, let's just start with a little bit of background. I'd love for people to know a little bit about you. In our conversations, I've got gathered some info and I think your story really impacts why you do what you do. And I'd love for the listeners to get a little bit of that background story.
Yeah, Delia, thanks so much for having me. First of all, it's really great to be here and collaborate. And I would say that, I have a really strong passion for helping business owners. And it's an interesting thing because I think when we get started in, any journey that we're on, we get into this space where we start to almost attract the people we're meant to serve.
Mm.
And so over my career, I've started to attract business owners and very specifically first gen business owners. So it's really cool to be here with you. So, a little bit about my background. So, I have 2 decades as a data analyst, data scientist, and I'd say about 4 years, 5 years ago, I started helping out my family with money. I'm good with numbers. There's no shortage of hard work in my community. But what is this thing about optimizing cash flow, optimizing our income, and using it in a way that we amplify it, we multiply it, and then we pass it on for whatever that purpose is. For a lot of us, it's our family. And so as I dove into that, I realized I was helping them, and friends started asking for help. And then I realized, well, if I got a financial license, like I can just help more people. And so that's really what got me to where I am today. If I could take that a step further, I would also say in the middle of that journey, I went through a significant loss. And I feel like when we go through loss in our life, it really puts things into perspective as to what matters the most and where we want to take our skills and our God-given gifts and where we want to put them. And so for me, that brought about a passion to help people. I always say plan during times of peace, whether that's tax planning, whether that's planning to sell the business, whether that's planning to buy the business. Plan in a time of peace, have a plan. So that's really been my mission, is to give people the tools that they can plan during peace and just be ready for what comes.
Thank you. Yeah, our community is really focused on buying and ultimately later on selling businesses. So certainly, I know you have tons on the exiting of businesses, but let's focus this conversation more on founders and business owners who are thinking about buying. And what I often hear when I talk to business owners is the fear they have of buying and all the stress around actually making a transaction possible. They might have money in their some retirement accounts, they might have some other assets. They just don't know how to think about buying a business. Do you have anything that you might want to share, just as a starting point for the conversation? Because I know you have mentioned many types of creative strategies for business owners to, take some money out of their 401(k) over the course of, so a few years. But there's so many creative strategies out there, correct, that people can probably leverage.
Yeah, let's talk about leverage, because a lot of times when people are getting started, they're coming from corporate, or maybe they're coming from a place of like they've invested in themselves and their careers, and they've built things up, like they have a home, they have a 401(k). And there's two places I'm going to go. And the first one I would say is, I recently met with a group of investors, and a lot of times what people don't realize is that they are actually sitting on their first investment that can help them build something. And a lot of times what that is it's their home. So I'm going to start with this one. I didn't think we were going to go here, Delia, but I'll just plug this one. So we have a program that's called Mortgage Free Life. And when I say mortgage free life, a lot of investors and a lot of people in the finance, in the creative finance space are like, I don't want to pay off my mortgage. That's an opportunity cost. Like I'm gonna lose something doing that. But what we've actually done with this program is, yeah, the average person loves that it pays down their home quickly, typically 5 to 7 years using the same amount of money they're already making. and the same amount they're already spending. But for people like us, we don't think pay down home, we think build equity as fast as we possibly can. And the way that this program is actually structured, it's something that we need to know as business owners anyways, which is optimizing cash flow. So what we do is we educate on how we can take the same amount of what's coming in and what's going out and just optimize it so we can build that equity quickly, or think of it as building savings quickly and then deploy that to something else. So in this particular group that I met with, we were talking about, how can we take that savings and then still push down the debt so that we create this environment where as money's going out, but it's coming back very quickly, right? So a lot of times what I've heard business owners do is do something like take out a home equity line of credit. Like that's one thing that people hear. And this program shows you how to do that, but in a very different way. It's not the same thing as just taking out a HELOC, but shows you how to optimize that so you can save one or $200,000, but then deploy it into something else to help you build. So I'll pause there because that comes to mind. Because when I think about this topic, people often are guided to just get a home equity line of credit, but they're never talked through a strategy that could really help them optimize that money.
Yeah, and I know for a lot of people, this sounds crazy. What you mean, I'm not gonna change my spending, but I'm gonna pay my house in 5 to 7 years and then have the equity to buy all kinds of businesses, or I can deploy, right, my equity. I use the assets in many ways. Um, I wanted to stop and kind of underline it. You did say that, right? I'm not making this up. You
I
can actually pay it off way faster without necessarily changing, right? Right. Save, like not spending money on anything.
No, so I like to think in the terms of like abundance mindset. We're not talking scarcity. We're not talking stop buying the coffee that you love that makes your day. We're not talking about that sort of thing. What I'm talking about is taking what's already coming in and what you're spending and just flowing it through your household in a way that's just optimized.
Yeah. And I know when I first heard it, I was like, oh, this is really crazy. I did not realize this is available to people, and this can change people's situation significantly. So you will be in the group, and people can talk to you about it for sure. But that's one way to maybe fund and finance some acquisitions in the near or future, the short term or long term future. Other than that, what other way you think we should cover today?
Yeah, so I want to say something too for like clarity, and as those of us with financial licenses, we have to be really careful about what we say in a space like this. And I want to say that like when we say we can show you how to pay down your home that quickly, we show you how to save a lot of money, right? So the average person saves 100 grand and then they can then take that and deploy it. So this isn't about a risky thing like taking equity and investing it. This is about I can help you save hundreds of thousands and then deploy that money at a much faster rate than you might be able to. The other way is a favorite of mine called break the 401k.
Okay.
So a lot of people here may be leaving corporate or may have, starting that second life as an entrepreneur and they have a 401k. And I want to preface this too by saying a lot of the things I'm talking about here when they're related to taxes, we're thinking about this through the lens of like tax efficiency strategy. And I never want to replace your CPA. I never want my team to replace your CPA. We want to invite them to the table because there's a lot of amazing CPAs, I'm sure, connected to this community right now. And one of those CPAs that I work with right now is based out of Southern California in Irvine Tax Group, and they've developed this really amazing program it's actually a real estate investment strategy. And it's a real estate investment strategy that allows you to invest in it, and you can take a 401k. And I've heard people doing this, and it always like honestly like breaks my heart when they do this. They don't do a rollover, and they may decide just to like take the money, right? Well, I'm in California. We're in California. That's like 50% of your money is gone immediately to taxes. I'm sure you've heard the
Yeah.
similar story. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I have a case study here. Actually, I'm gonna look down for a second. So we'll just use round numbers. So we'll just say $1 million, right? Let's say someone has $1 million in their 401k. If they do that heartbreaking activity, they're only going to have about $537,000 left. So with this strategy, it was developed to help solve that problem. And because for those of you listening, if you're under 59 and a half, which is a lot of us, you're going to have some penalties if you decide to access that money. So with this particular strategy here, it actually creates a situation where you could actually have a 30% ROI on that money. And what we're doing is we're doing our favorite thing as business owners, which is creating a K1 loss.
Hmm.
So we're creating a K1 loss with this strategy, which that same $1 million. Now, there's always a trade off in everything financially that we do. And the trade off in this one, for full clarity, is your money gets locked up for just a little bit of time into this real estate investment. It's a lockup period when a 401k or an IRA is involved. It's a lockup period of 6 years. But at the end of that 6 years, you'd get that same $1 million back, but you'd actually get 1.3 million because you'd also be getting dividends from investing in the strategy. So maybe you're trading some time, but at the end of that time, you would get 1.3 million instead of 537,000. So that's one of our favorite things to talk about when it comes to the
Yeah,
401k.
and the extra 300K can help a lot of investments. Yeah, that's great. The reason I wanted to talk about these couple of ideas because I want people to understand there are many options out there. This is just, we're just scratching the surface, just starting the conversation. I want people in this community to start thinking more creatively. There are so many ways to take advantage of all of these types of structures. And it takes time to learn about them, right? We mentioned a couple. They can reach out to you if they really have that type of money. They have those assets to figure out what's the best use of their assets. How can they use them maybe to invest or do other things? But there's so many more, right?
Yeah.
And that's the purpose behind it. Now, can you tell me maybe a couple of stories in you working with business owners where you've helped them and they've seen, the light come on and it really completely changed their life as a business owner? Because business owners tend to work really hard in their business, whether it's buying a small business, trying to grow it, take care of the employees, take care of everything, all the bills. Sometimes they get like so focused on just surviving that they don't have the time to come out, take a
Yeah.
breath of fresh air and realize they have options. And we want in this community to help them get exposed to these types of creative options out there so that they can uh, get more out of what they have. So I'd
Yeah,
love to hear a
absolutely.
couple of stories or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I want to say this. So in my, so I think of things as systems. I think we have this in common, Delia. And the system that I think is really important is like optimizing our personal finances as business owners, and then taking that a step further. So let's do more with what we're bringing in, and
Mhm.
let's do that in a smart way. And then taking that one step further, and now let's optimize the taxes in our business. So once again, it's just more leverage, right? And then we take that to the next step of, scaling more, and we'll talk about this another time, but like passing those things on. And for a couple of people who come to mind is there's a business owner based out of Nashville, owns multiple restaurants there, and we actually optimized his income using mortgage free life. So that was like a big one for him because this is also something that when I hear this, I'm like, oh man, you have how much cash just sitting in a sitting in a savings account, not doing anything,
Mhm.
right? So what we did is he had 27 years left on his mortgage, and we took that same cash and we just parked it over in once we optimized his cash flow. And now his mortgage is going to be gone in 3 years.
That's
And
awesome.
now he's thinking rental properties, rental properties, rental properties, right? How can I get more assets and more cash flow?
So let me
Um,
stop you there. You're
yeah,
talking about this person had the cash in the bank account, and he was not aware that by doing structuring the cash flow differently, he can actually pay his house in 3 years and then take all of those savings and reinvest. So I assume this person who is running some restaurants has a busy life. It's
very
probably
busy,
yeah, and he
very
probably
busy.
never considered that he can get to that point in a few years starting to invest in rental properties or other things, and maybe even choose to get out of the business if you want to, because when you're in the business you feel like you're stuck for so much longer when you don't know how to optimize your cash flow. That's kind of what I got from your story.
Yeah, I agree because sometimes, we get in this rhythm. Like you said it, like day to day, we're just really busy. We don't have time to, come up for air and really think about things like that. And yeah, we may think, oh, I have to grind this hard for 25 more years, but what if it's only 5? and and the best part is you still have access to that money, and I think we're all built to, like, we're entrepreneurs, like we're not going to stop. Like retirement isn't a thing. Like we're just going to I'm going to speak for myself, but I think this will resonate for some. I'm just going to keep creating. I'm never going to stop creating. And but to have the space to know, okay, the things that I stress about, they're gone,
Mhm.
that's just going to amplify the creativity and the more projects that we can do, and doing them from a place of
Agreed.
just heart, right?
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so that was one story. What
Yeah.
about, because someone might listen to it and say, "Well, I don't have several restaurants. I'm not there. I'm just starting out. I'd love to, buy a business this year. My finances are very different."
Yeah, no, that's great. And I will share this. So I actually helped somebody this week who has a YouTube channel and is a business owner, and a very similar thing. He wanted to pay his parents' house off.
Mm.
That was a big thing for him to keep pushing, young in his career too, very young in his career as an entrepreneur. And that was something that he wanted to do. And when I showed him, yeah, you actually can, very fast, that then just kind of completely changed his perception of like what his next step was going to be.
That's awesome.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and then a tax story. I'm happy to share some tax
Yeah,
stories too.
let's do it.
Some of these things when we talk about them, they can sound complex, right? And it can sound like, oh gosh, like maybe this takes a couple months, but some of the things we do just take 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Like, once we kind of show your CPA how it works, we have what's called a data room. So like the CPA goes and they download. I always say they do the nerd CPA things, and they're like, let's read all the tax law, the tax code. Let's ask your CPA stuff, people questions. Once they go through that exercise, some of these things take 20 minutes to execute. And I had a business owner that we talk about scaling, but we don't often think about, okay, the end of that successful first year, right? Where we have, few millions of income. Well, what are we going to do to offset it?
Mm.
And that's where this particular entrepreneur was. And we were able to, in 20 minutes, take care of a $600,000 tax problem.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, as you're saying this, I'm like, this is great, right? And I think we'll be able to have more conversations about it in the near future. Um, but kind of pulling back, right? Again, some of the people in our community have, six-figure businesses. They might think, I don't have that much money. Like, what would be the criteria for someone to consider these options that you've been talking about? Like how
Yeah.
much money should, like who are we talking about? What's like the baseline? Or maybe it's more difficult than that, than coming up with the criteria.
No, I love this question. And I love this question because, I come from a place of really wanting to help people at all levels.
Mm.
And the one thing, so I'll go back to Mortgage Free Life because this is actually why I fell in love with the program, is that you don't actually have to have a lot of income for this to work. Where the secret sauce is, where the like the formula is that it's the difference as a business owner between how much you're bringing in and how much you're spending. And the wider that gap is, it doesn't have to be crazy. It could just be 20%, right? So think of yourself as like, if you're listening, when you're listening to this, oh, I can save at least 20% a month, no problem. Doesn't matter if you're making 10,000 a month or 100,000 a month. If you have a 20% gap there, you can really start to optimize your income.
That's awesome. Okay, so
Yeah,
that's the number that people can keep in mind.
20%. Yeah. So think 20%. And then on the tax side, there's some amazing things we could do starting at income of 500,000. Like starting there, we can really do some damage. And then it just kind of goes up from there.
Okay, that's awesome. In talking about, maybe business acquisitions and people need to have some money. There are creative ways where the seller can fund the acquisition so they don't need to buy it. You can technically buy a job, right? Maybe buy a business you're involved in. There are a lot of different things that we'll talk about in our community. But if people had those types of questions, like where can I find money to fund this acquisition? Are those types of questions that you can help with, kind of work process those types of questions with them?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll say that this comes from a place of resonating too, because I'm on my own journey of business acquisition. And I recently had the opportunity, I'll just share this if it helps anyone. Like I recently had the opportunity to go to a real estate event and I invested, and a lot of you here are investing in yourselves too. I invested a little bit more to get into a private room with the person that was there to speak. And he was asked, like, if you could start all over again, like you've built this, you've started from, scratch, you built this business buying and real estate buying portfolio up. What's the most important thing that someone should learn? And he said, raising capital. And so that's a journey that I'm on myself. I'm, working with a coach to do that. But to really answer your question, Delia, yeah, I have a system where I sit with someone. First of all, I just, want to get to know you to see if we like each other. That's really important, I think, in business. And what I do is I put together a report that sees if we can find, I would say, like, can we find leaks?
Mhm.
Can we find things there could be our money already there? And so that is something, I love to just, have that conversation with people.
That's great. Okay. Well, I know people will benefit a lot from having that conversation with you, and I'm excited to see how those conversations are going to change lives. Literally, I know that has happened before, and I know that's possible because again, business owners have this tendency to be so stuck in the day to day that they forget that they have options. So I'm excited about that. If I were to ask you, think of you when you were 21, what would you tell your 21-year-old self about life, about business, something, a piece of advice that you feel like might have made a huge difference or just helped you in your journey?
Yeah. I would have told 21-year-old Sarah that where you're strong, your strengths, to optimize them, to lean into them, that they're unique to you and that, God made you that way, made your brain that way, a very specific reason. And you're not meant to do it like everybody else. And that's absolutely okay to find your own way and be authentic to you as you navigate who you want to partner with, what type of business you want to buy and build. And that is something that is unique to you and you answer to you and no one has to understand the journey but you, and that's okay.
I love it because it resonates a lot with my own journey, right? I was trying to do things according to other people's frameworks and models and approaches, and it just never fit well. And there was friction all the time until I realized, why am I not building my own life the way that fits me, who I was created to be, leveraging my strengths, building on those. And it took me a long, long time to realize that's okay. we all have our own journey, and don't compare yourself to other people. Just focus on your journey. Learn from the other people for sure.
Absolutely.
A big
Yeah.
believer, you're a big believer in that, that we spend a lot of time investing in those relationships and learning from
Mhm.
mentors, mentoring others. But at the end of the day, each one of us has a kind of a unique journey. And that's the beauty of it. It's actually more
Yeah.
fun that way, to see it that way, not be stressed about it. Oh, why am I so different? Or why is this not working for me? Because you need to build your own thing.
Yeah, and you know what, Delia? This is so cool because I heard something this week, and I actually had the opportunity. I'm here at a real estate event today. Traveled a couple hours, and while I was driving here, I think they were always given the opportunity to mentor a younger version of us.
Mm.
Like those people get put into our lives, and so there's someone that's 10 years younger than me asking me for advice on my drive here, and it was exactly that. It was like we're all on our own journey, and the cool thing about being in a community like this and just being collaborative is that we're all just a few steps ahead of each other. And if you just turn around and extend a hand to the person just a few steps behind you, like everybody wins.
Yeah,
Like we all
agree.
win. Yeah.
Agreed. You know, I'm a big proponent of the collaborative method, always working with people, always building with people. It's so much easier. Now, I do know that you have to find the right collaborators. That
Yeah.
takes some time. So, if I were to ask you, what do you think would make a good collaborator for you? Like, how do you identify who to work with, who you like to work with, and are there any types of principles or insights you discover over time as you've worked with a lot of people?
Yeah, I actually, so I'm being someone into AI. I was really fortunate and like really stoked when I came across this system. A mentor shared it with me, and it's an assessment test called Human Ops. So like we've heard of assessments, we've like Myers-Briggs, that sort of thing. But this human ops is really interesting. It has AI concepts woven into it, and it's a very short assessment test that you can take, and it highlights your strengths, and then it also highlights your communication style. And one of the things I know about myself, know thyself, also very important principle, is I'm very much so a visionary. And so when it comes to partnering with people, I think of the functions that will serve in each other's lives.
Hmm.
And if the function I need as someone who's always kind of 30,000 foot view is I need someone who's going to be maybe a little more like in the blades of grass, like not even the weeds, like even deeper than that. Like I know if we have some of the similar traits, we're going to be great friends, but for
Yeah,
that function, it might not work. And so I actually think there's a lot of value in team assessments, whatever you choose, whatever that flavor is, right? To understand where people fit in. I know Ray Dalio in his book Principles talks about how they developed like almost like baseball cards for
hmm,
everyone on their team to highlight their strengths. And I think that's like a technical, tactical answer. But I also think there's like kind of a spiritual connection answer as well, which is like I feel like I really have to like have I call it vibing with people. Like I really feel that way, like shared values and just like genuinely good people. Like and I know that's a very kind of vague term, but I've always said like if I go out to eat dinner with someone, I learn a lot about them, about how they treat the staff in the restaurant, and that's a huge indicator for me if there's someone I want to, trust my clients with, trust my team with. So yeah,
totally. Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
yeah,
Um, Any other question maybe that we should address on this topic of maybe creative financing and just thinking of optimizing cash flow for business owners? Any last minute thoughts that you think we should address? And we will have more conversations in the future,
yeah.
so go more, deeper in other topics, just on this idea of maybe general principles that they need to keep in mind.
Yeah, I would say that like when it comes to as a business owner, We talk a lot about the importance of teams, and I think when it comes to finances, having a great team is also very important. Um, I think that on our journeys as business owners, we're constantly having to learn and pivot, and things are. I was having this conversation actually with another financial advisor. Like things are changing rapidly. Like AI is changing the job landscape. The economy is just completely changing. It's really exciting, actually. And with those things changing, the financial tools that worked for our parents and our grandparents, they are kind of like having their own evolution and breakdown and evolution. And so, whoever that person is that you want to guide you on that journey, just make sure that they're like open-minded and they are researching new strategies that are specifically designed for business owners too. I think that's incredibly important. It does not have to be me. I will say that it should be someone that's adaptable, that is learning, that is on that team sport where I think it's really important that your tax person talks to your finance person, talks to your life insurance, but like it's a team sport. And I think that's a really, really important component to really strengthening that base when you're first starting out as a business owner, and then especially important when you're growing.
Yeah, and one of my mentors used the analogy of running your finances the same way you run your business. You have different
Mm,
experts, right, running different parts of your
yeah,
business because the business is not going to work if you wear all the hats. And there comes a point, right, where as a business owner, when you hit certain numbers, you have to start looking at your personal and business finances as its own business almost, and
yeah,
have the right people in place. For me, that was an analogy that made sense because I've run businesses, right?
yeah,
I haven't always treated my finances the right way. I'm like, ah, I'll deal with it later. And then, you lose a lot every single month, every single year, and you make a lot of mistakes when you treat it that way. So, our community is going to be different because we're going to remind ourselves, hey, this is important. You have experts you can reach out to, people. We will only allow people we trust in this community. Some people can deceive you initially, but the truth always comes out. We
mhm,
want to be people that can trust each other so that we can all, right, support each other and everybody does better. And that's my vision, that's my goal, and I'm excited to continue these conversations. So thank you, Sarah,
yeah,
for your
absolutely.
time.
Yeah, thank you.